I'm Edwin Samuelson, and this is the third week of my laryngitis, and hopefully be my last week. Today,
You just got surgery.
my voice is about to go, but I'm going to do the best I can for the rest of the show. Today, we're going to be discussing the best animated films. We're just going to throw out some here that we like and just discuss them like we normally would when we hang out. Anyway, before I begin, let me introduce my panel. To my left, Mr. Eric Cohen. To his left, Jeff Galashaw. And to his left, Michael Foltz. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to start this one off with the film that I think is considered by everyone to be the definitive animated film of its time and the template for all animated films to come. And that film is Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. I have to start off with that one.
All right.
Okay.
I love Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
It's the scariest ride at Disney World.
I will agree with you that it's a scary movie, even on its own. Even back then, I thought it was very creepy for children. I watched it again recently, and I was really kind of surprised at how pretty insane.
It's a very well-crafted film, especially when you think about that. It was the first feature-length hand-drawn cartoon.
And it all these new features and teaching, because this stuff people take for granted. I mean, the characters dancing.
Mike, you still with us? Huh? Still with us, Mike?
We're talking about Snow White, just in case you forgot.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this one actually, they had to actually learn how to.
It's got
animate
naked dwarves in it.
Well, they made a lot of connections. But Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs is an amazing technical achievement. And I think one of the most wonderful, in fact, I'm not even saying anime films, one of the best films ever made. I really will say that. Great storytelling.
I actually like.
And it's a musical.
I actually like Sleeping Beauty, and I like Sleeping Beauty better, and I like Alice in Wonderland better.
Really?
Yep.
Why is that?
Stories. I like the stories better.
I'm really surprised to hear you say that. I think Snow White's got a great story.
I think the animation's all the same. I think all those early Disney films, all the animation looks the same. But that's not a cut down. It's just that animation was wonderful. I mean, Fantasia, that animation is just out of this world. That style is great. I mean, that's the stuff that you grew up when you were as a kid. I mean, I don't think that I'm wondering if movies like Snow White, Alice in Wonderland, Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, if those films still have an effect on kids these days when they see things like Shrek or Toy Story.
My understanding, I remember, my ex-wife.
I don't have kids of my own.
My ex-wife's nieces and nephews,
But I want
up to
to.
very recently, were absolutely enchanted with the video releases of those films.
Well, were they talked up a lot by their parents to these, or they just came in fresh and like, here, sit down and watch this?
These are the Sega generation, give me this right away. I only want to watch 2 seconds of this. They were
Did you
absolutely
just say the Sega generation?
I'm sorry.
That's very strange.
It's the Xbox 360
Xbox
PS3.
360, PS1, I'm sorry.
Well, I'm going to go on you guys. Now, Mike, I know you love Ralph Bakshi, so let's give it to you.
I don't necessarily love him, but I think that he did a lot for animation, especially in the 70s. He brought animation to where it wasn't, it just wasn't there. I mean, he brought an adult sensibility, and he brought adult themes to animation, which I think was revolutionary. I don't really see that these days. I don't see anybody doing real adult animation. I'm not talking about like, for adult, like dirty cartoons or anything, but definitely adult themes, adult stories within cartoons. You don't see that. It's all Disney, it's all DreamWorks, and it's these kiddie things. But yeah, I mean, it started with Fritz the Cat.
And he didn't direct the sequel, I want to mention.
And then he did other things like American Pop, and he did, which is American Pop's not a great film, but it's an interesting film.
It's a bizarre film. It's a history of rock and roll through a family, but it's strange who he chooses to tell that story and what point of view it's coming from.
Yeah, it's interesting that the guy was really into punk rock, but then he sings Night Moves by Bob Seger.
Yeah,
which is
it's like weird music choices.
Punk rock songs I've ever heard.
For a rock and roll thing, it seems like he didn't have enough money to like license the real music he should have used or something, but it's a very interesting experiment.
He had a very ambitious film called Wizards, which the animation ain't great, but it's an interesting storyline. It's a very interesting storyline.
Fire and Ice.
Fire and Ice, which is one of my favorites. That's very like Frank Frazetta, sword and sorcery fantasy type thing about an evil queen that moves along the land and sends out her minions to do damage. It's a very typical tale that's seen over and over again.
I'll mention one to you. How about what my favorite Ralph Bakshi film is?
Rock and Rule?
No, he didn't do that one. The film that basically almost cost him his career at the time.
Oh, Coonskin.
Coonskin, right.
Which is a blaxploitation version of the, I guess you could say, like the urban folk tales, like the Bear Rabbit. But it's, updated for adult themes, of course. Barry White, terrific in the movie with his voice. Wonderful. Unfortunately, the film was originally supposed to be released by Paramount, but because of protests from the NAACP, the film was then distributed under a mafia distributor called Bryanston Pictures, and it got buried. And it's never really been available on video. It has, but it was under the title Street Fight, which is not as controversial as Coonskin.
Well, but the NAACP, which a lot of organizations don't get, but it was a film like making fun of that. It was making fun of like the racist attitudes and everything. It wasn't like going along with it like.
I thought it was a terrific film. I thought it was a very unique film. I thought it was very respectful. It was making fun of the stereotypes.
Exactly.
That was the whole point.
But I think that what Disney did and Max Fleischer did with rotoscoping, I think Ralph Bakshi also took it up a notch and did it with the rotoscoping, which I thought was fantastic.
The Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings was a wonderful.
Let's not forget.
He did a wonderful job with that. Some of the depictions of the characters in Lord of the Rings, not so good. I mean,
well, it was a budget issue too. He had to do some shortcuts.
It was very strange interpretation.
He said he had to cram everything into 2 hours.
Aragorn was one of the worst interpretations of Aragorn I ever saw. He looked like a cigar store Indian. I don't know what was going on there, but it was interesting that
because you wanted to love Aragorn.
I do love Aragorn in my own special manly way.
Especially sad that he didn't come back for the sequel, though.
Well, you had Rankin Bass, who did The Hobbit. And for some reason, I forgot what the lore was, but then Ralph Bakshi ended up taking on Lord of the Rings. And he tried squeezing in, but there was a lot of stuff that was still cut out. There was that whole piece with Saruman that you actually had stills that were put in a movie book that was actually never put into the film itself. And then they missed the whole thing with Shelob. And then he lost it. That they got in some. I think Bakshi got in a dispute with Saul Zaentz, and that's why he lost that. So then Rankin Bass had to do Return of the King.
Yeah, now Jeff, what are some of your favorites?
Well, I enjoy all the movies that are mentioned that I've actually seen. And as part of the Sega generation, I would actually have to say, since you guys get on me all the time for having mainstream taste, growing up I was a Disney whore. So I liked all the stuff like The Lion King, which was one of the first animated movies as an adult I remember going to see. Because for a while there, I just didn't go to see animated movies. I just waited for the home video. Oliver and Company, which took a very long time even to come on home video, because I remember I saw it in the theater, I believe it was 88, and it didn't come out for like another 10 years, and that was one of my lost gems, even though the music was by Billy Joel. But still, I enjoyed the film. But most of, even growing up, most of the cartoon movies that I remember The Secret of NIMH, I remember Charlotte's Web and loving them, but it always came back to Disney, which was like stuff like, because they used to put out video compilations where they'd show like a scene from Bambi mixed in with a Chip and Dale cartoon, and it was always a theme, like either Thanksgiving, Christmas, and I owned all these video cassettes. And I can even name something that is totally un-Disney that I'm going to get a lot of crap from people and these guys right here for liking. But I even liked the stuff like the Care Bears. Like Care Bears too. See, he's already starting.
Sorry, dude. No disrespect.
Somehow that doesn't bother me. I don't know.
Out of all the people, Mike, the biggest critic here.
The thing about it is it's an advertising for a greeting card company.
But still, if you watch Care Bears 2, that is some of the scariest stuff. Especially if you're a young kid.
Especially if you're high.
Well, I wasn't smoking drugs at 12 years old.
I'm embarrassed to tell you this. I saw that in the theater with my grandfather.
See? And then there was like this one, even I can't believe I'm going
to mention. I feel so bad for him. I punished him so bad.
You're going to... This one, Rainbow Bright and the Star Stealer. Even I remember going to...
You a Jim and a Holograms
That's pretty
fan.
fucking gay.
That's pretty fucking...
Wow.
But they had really evil stuff in those cartoons that was for kids.
That's KY Jelly Gay.
I don't care. I was a kid. I'm sorry. I like stuff like that.
Right.
It's not like I'm sitting there right now, hey, as soon as I leave, I got to go watch that again.
Well, it's so funny because that I remember there was a lot of animated films I saw in the theater. You know, I saw Transformers the movie. Which
I saw that at the theater.
too.
And by the way, that's a great DVD. People, go get it. Amazing. I love that movie. Also,
Rodimus Prime.
I mean, God,
How
that's
I
like a
remember
porno
that.
actor.
I saw it when I was
I
in
got
high
to
school.
tell you guys my favorite
Go ahead, I'm
animated
sorry,
film
go
of
ahead.
all time.
Go ahead, go for it.
And this one, man, this is like one of my favorite movies of all time.
Go
This
for
was
it.
made in the 60s.
The Black
I
Cauldron.
think it was a Rankin Bass film. I'm not quite sure,
Black
but
Cauldron was
we're
84.
talking a lot about cell animation. This is like more like claymation. Mad Monster Party.
Oh,
It's
that
like-
was
It's
Rankin
like
Bass.
one of my favorite
That was
movies ever, and it's awesome.
I don't think it was ever at the theater though.
Does it
It
have to
was.
be?
It was in the theater.
Does it have to be? We talk
Hold
about
on,
The Hobbit.
Let me look at my notes.
Well, I could bring up the Smurfs.
Yeah.
Mad Monster Party just kicks ass. It kicks ass.
Which I still haven't
Anything
seen yet,
Tim
but I
Burton
wanted to
done
for a long
with,
time.
You know
you
what's
know.
funny is that you got Boris Karloff, who's wonderful. in it.
Boris Karloff is awesome, man.
And don't forget, he also did another great animated film, The Grinch Who Stole
That's
Christmas.
right.
He was the narrator.
But I want to talk about Mad
Yeah,
Monster
please.
Party.
But
Have
he
you
was-
seen Mad Monster Party?
I've
I've
wanted
seen
to.
bits and
I've
pieces.
wanted
I've never
to.
watched it the whole way
It's,
through.
it's
It's
just
great.
total '60s kitsch. It's great. It's like a claymation thing, but for adults. You know, and
Because you
it's-
said this, I'm putting that at the beginning of my queue.
The thing I like
gotta
about that
see it's
too,
great.
there's very few animated films today that you can see as an adult and enjoy, and also kids can enjoy at the same time. And I think Mad Monster Party is a perfect
You know who
example.
are the biggest fans of the Mad Monster Party? I don't know if it's the original members, but the Misfits are big fans
I
of Mad
believe
Monster
it.
Party.
Why wouldn't they be?
I don't know.
Because it's freaking awesome. Mad Monster Party is great. It's basically all the Universal monsters animated
I
in
wanna
60s
say-
style, and it's
Well,
just
Did you
they're
take
having a
Did
party.
you take acid when you saw this?
I want to actually try that, but I was upset. I saw this when I was a kid. I've been obsessed
If
with
you
it
get the
ever since.
tabs, I'll get the movie and we'll sit
Actually, I
down.
think it requires Paxil.
Paxil. Okay.
Is that right? Is that right?
I think it's
it just
present.
controls your
I think
mood. I don't think it gives you the bright colors that shrimps
I think you
or
might want
acid would.
mushrooms or something.
But I didn't bring up my favorite movie. You're
You
asking
did.
everybody.
You did the
No,
Wizards.
no. You gave us a whole lecture on
No, Ralph Bakshi. He's not. Yeah, no. It's heavy
Give
metal.
us a whole dissertation.
Give me a
I was
break,
waiting
people.
for you to say
Give
something
me a
about
break,
it.
people. Heavy Metal is the best animated adult film out there
And why is it?
because it's got like all these really fucking awesome storylines. It's like 5 stories that all surround.
Great music.
The soundtrack is my favorite
You okay?
rock soundtrack of all
Dude,
time.
I was about to have a
Movie.
stroke there.
No, seriously, I remember watching this. It came on. I remember seeing the commercial. I was watching Fridays,
Oh God, great.
and they showed the commercial for Heavy Metal.
And they had
I
a little
almost had
disclaimer
a
at the
heart
bottom.
attack. I
Remember
almost
the
had a heart
disclaimer?
attack. I thought, holy shit! And then when it came on HBO, like a year later, I had a party with my best friend Jeff was going to come over. We were going to watch Heavy Metal. It was going to be on at 11 o'clock at night. We told my parents, you got to go to bed and leave us alone because we're going to watch Heavy Metal. And it did not disappoint. It was so great and it was so funny. And it all surrounds this big floating orb called the Lochnar. And it's an evil fucking orb. And all 5 of these stories are linked together. It's like a Robert Altman.
It's intended to be the movie version of Heavy Metal magazine.
Based on the book, based on that magazine, the
Full
Full
of-
magazine.
which I was a
Science
huge
fiction.
fan of.
Science
That
fiction.
was my comic book education, was Heavy Metal.
And you know something? Each story has its own merit. Each story has its own different animation style. Each story has its own writer, and they all culminate in this one. I think
And they're all based on actual Heavy Metal
exactly,
comics, yeah,
exactly.
or
And
stories.
I think the last story, called The Last Terrakian, could be made into a feature film. It was so amazing,
You're gonna hate me for
and it
this.
was and
My
it was
least
the,
favorite of the
and
stories.
it was the
agree.
rotoscoping again.
Least favorite of the stories.
And Howard Chaykin wrote it, who's a very famous comic book writer. He wrote the Last Terrakian. That storyline.
My favorite story, I think, would be the Harry Canyon.
Harry Canyon. That's
Harry Canyon's
wonderful.
great.
I love that.
That one, and I also love the B-52, which was written by Dan O'Bannon.
Oh,
And it has a lot of elements of Alien in it, actually.
yeah.
Very well done.
Fantastic.
And we want to mention, too, that this thing is very consistent considering it was animated by different people all over the world. Each segment was done in a
Very
different
underrated for its time, too, because when it came out, it didn't get the best reviews.
No,
You know,
no.
not,
Matter of
not,
fact,
not just because it was sort of, that B-movie pulp thing going on, but a lot of people said the animation isn't that great, all that stuff. And actually, the animation's spectacular.
Some of it's very good.
Yeah, it still a lot of that animation still holds up, especially the final story, the rotoscoping.
Well, I want to mention one thing here, too. The cult in this film is amazing, and to consider too, the film was unavailable on video for over 15 years after it came out because of music video.
Yeah, music rights.
Music rights, and the only place you could see it was maybe once a year on Cinemax, and somehow the tape circulated. The man went out there, and they finally got it out on DVD, and it's a great DVD. Video went to theater, then tape, and then DVD.
It came to the Waverly Cinema before the IFC Center. And I remember my friends John and Christian and I, we went to the Waverly Cinema to watch Heavy Metal, and which is before the IFC Center took over. That Waverly Cinema was bloody awful. But I remember in these small-ass seats watching this new print of Heavy Metal that they just refurbished. And it was so exciting. It was like, there's so much female nudity in this, but it is so wonderful. It is so
The soundtrack
gratuitous.
is what I think is the secret ingredient. The soundtrack, I mean,
Unbelievable.
my favorite musical scene in the movie is the cameo of the robotic Devo. I think that's great in the last story.
Oh, yeah. We're working in the coal mine.
That's actually Through Being Cool.
Through Being Cool, that's right.
Because Devo is one of my favorites.
Because Working in the Coal Mine was over the credits.
Yes.
My favorite one was actually the probably the Black Sabbath, the Mob Rules, when the Lochnar takes all these nomads and basically turns them into this army of monsters, and the monsters take over this philosopher teacher city, and they just storm it and they start playing this, and it's just like one of those adrenaline moments in films that you see, you get the goosebumps from, and it's just complete devastation.
I want to also say the opening credits, what I think the song is by Don Felder of the Eagles. Terrific guitar work.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's him. If I'm wrong.
No, you're right.
Don Felder, terrific.
Now, there's two versions of Heavy Metal.
Yeah,
two
there's a
different
Sammy Hagar one.
Sammy
That's
Hagar
the one that you see at the beginning when the car comes out.
Yeah, that's the one.
No, actually, no. That's over the credits, and then Radar Rider comes out when, I forgot who sings Radar Rider, but then Don Felder does his version of Heavy Metal later on in the film.
Terrific movie.
Cheap Trick.
What is your favorite segment, Jeff, in the movie and least
Journey.
favorite?
Well,
Journey, exactly.
Would it be Den or
well,
Hurricane?
actually,
Den's great.
There's two different. I have a favorite storyline, but then I have a favorite song from the movie, which is in a totally different segment. My favorite segment would be the futuristic detective story.
Harry Canyon.
Yes, that is my favorite segment to watch, story-wise.
That's the first story too, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
It's
Yeah,
one
I
of the
believe
first
it's
ones.
Yes,
yeah.
it is.
And my favorite song from the movie is actually "Take It," but I don't remember.
Reach Out and Take It. That was with Stern.
Yeah,
Hand
that
over
story.
fist.
Yeah,
Yes.
hand over fist.
I love
Hand
that
over
name.
fist.
Yes,
I love that name.
I love when they play the song in its entirety throughout the whole.
Reach Out and Take It by Cheap Trick.
Okay.
What
Yeah,
about
thank
you,
you.
Eric? What is your favorite and least favorite?
That's actually my favorite song from
I
that
don't
too.
know least favorite or favorite. I like the Harry Canyon one. I like the B-52 one. I think they're all. I think what's really interesting is about it like if you take each individual story, they kind of don't work in that traditional kind of anthology kind of thing. They're weird in that they don't have that beginning, middle, end punch kind of thing to it. But if you put them all together in one, it works as a whole somehow.
Yeah, they don't have
So I
like
don't
little
look at it as
twist
saying, well, I have a favorite story. It's like I don't think it would. Each story works by itself. I think it only works as it's like one big whole, even though they are individual like unrelated chapters. So I don't know. I couldn't say I have a favorite or least favorite. I'm more fascinated by there's that episode where the robots. What's the one where like the guys from outer space they
pick up the senator robot,
right?
Jewish,
drill a hole.
Jewish.
Right.
pick
They have
up
the
the secretary,
secretary.
too. Yeah.
And I was like amazed that I think Eugene Levy and John Candy did the voices.
Terrific talent, yes.
For two of the
Oh,
robots.
it was a lot of those SCTV guys.
Yeah,
were
it was
doing
a lot.
Clarity.
Harry Canyon was Don Candy. Den was John Candy.
Yeah.
The robot, and that one we were just talking about, that was John Candy.
Harry Canyon, although is an actor that I'm not
I'm
familiar
sorry,
with.
that wasn't John
He
Candy.
sounded like Ron Silver, but it wasn't Ron Silver doing the voice of Harry Canyon. I forgot who it was.
Don Franks, I think, did
Yeah.
it. He was a very famous voice actor. Well, let's get on to another one, Jeff. What is your favorite? Oh, you have another favorite? I mean, well, actually, you mentioned.
I just want to put on this rejoinder. If you can ever show the heavy metal to a girl and the girl likes it, marry her.
Actually, you know what? I got to mention mine. I didn't mention mine. I feel like an idiot. I forgot to mention it. One of my favorite animated films of all time is The Secret of NEM by Don Bluth. Don Bluth was an animator at Disney, and he was soured working there because the studio was in decline in the 70s. So he decided to found his own animation studio in Ireland, and he made a film called Secret of NEM based on a children's book. And it's a very dark story, and it's got some very beautiful animation, and it has very good storytelling. it's gathered a very big cult following over the years. And unfortunately, some sequels were made, but Donald Bluth had nothing to do with them. And unfortunately, Donald Bluth never really went on to do anything else after that.
Dragon's Den. He created the
video game, but not as the movies. He did American Tail.
All his animation, American Tail. You know, it's another interesting one we haven't mentioned is Watership Down.
Oh God, that's a depressing movie.
Very dark.
Whoa.
Based on
What about
amazing
Animal
novel.
Farm?
Animal Farm, yeah.
And the Plague Dogs, that's even more depressing.
Although Animal Farm is interesting because it differs from the George Orwell novel, because at the end of the Animal Farm animated film, it actually has a happy ending, whereas Animal Farm, the book, does not have a happy ending.
It's not really 100% happy, but it's more.
No, it's more satisfying, I should say.
Well, the Orwell novel isn't so much an unhappy ending.
It's an allegory.
It just kind of
the
doesn't
Soviet
end. It
Union.
just
Yeah.
ends on this like final note, and that's it. I mean, it's up to you to guess what happens beyond that.
In the movie, though, there's that second rebellion, but
Yeah.
in the novel, there was never that second rebellion that took place. Because
No, the
once
pigs and the
took
humans are
over,
together
But
partying
then
and-
finally, the animals
God,
they couldn't-
rebelled
right.
against them.
You guys got me so in the mood to see that again. You know what? And we gotta give credit too for a film of that time to be made like that. It's pretty impressive. Think who would make a movie like that back then?
Indeed.
It's just a shame that what they're doing with the animation now, you just can't seem to get like more adult stuff going on. I don't understand. I'm not asking
But you
for
know what?
porn,
Though,
but
I understand what you're saying, but where I would disagree with you there is that if you see a lot of like what are known as the family cartoons that come out, they are really sophisticated now.
Simpsons, perfect.
They've
example.
really caught up. I mean, like you mentioned, like the stuff like Toy Story and like Toy Story is really fucking sophisticated.
But are we gonna see something like Heavy Metal again? I'm not
Beowulf.
asking for a duplicate.
You saw Heavy
but
Metal
I'm asking-
2000.
Well, Heavy Metal 2000 was a travesty. What's his name? The
Kevin
Teenage
Eastman.
Mutant Ninja
Kevin
Turtle
Eastman.
guy, Kevin. What's
Eastman
his name?
cast his
Kevin
wife.
Eastman. That was a travesty. I mean, that was just basically him with Julie Strain, his wife, and his best friend Simon Bisley, and let's make an animated movie about us in space. I mean, awful, 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 awful tragedy. But yeah, Beowulf is, that's a great example of something. But I don't know. I want to see more.
Can I mention two films and see?
Pick one.
I think you've all seen them. I think it'd be a good one to talk about.
book.
What did you guys think of the Aqua Teen Hunger Force movie? I'm a huge fan of the
I
Aqua
haven't
Teen
seen
Hunger
it.
Force.
I've never seen the show.
I don't think, yeah.
Oh
It
God.
was like an extended episode
It's
with
terrific.
more cursing.
The opening is one of the best things I've ever seen in a movie. All right, how about the Simpsons movie? Now, what did you guys think? I know you all saw that. Come on.
I liked it. I didn't love it, but I liked it.
Really? I'm surprised you didn't say that.
I'm a huge Simpsons fan But I felt like I think what a lot of critics who are Simpsons fans say, there's been other classic episodes that were better. There was still some great stuff in it. It just, I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with Mike.
Same here.
He pretty much summed it up for me.
I thought the story wasn't epic enough. I know it sounds ridiculous, but about pig shit. I feel they tried to give everybody in the movie something to do. All the characters. They wanted all the characters in there. And they forgot the focus of the movie. I loved it anyway. I still enjoyed seeing The Simpsons on a big screen. I love the little things they could get away with in the theater.
Right.
That they couldn't do on the TV show. Okay, well, how about some of your least favorite animated films? I mean, you just mentioned Heavy Metal 2000, of course.
Travis.
What's one that you were really looking forward to seeing and it just totally stunk? I know, Jeff, because you were a big Disney fan, there had to be one that you saw that was like, oh my God, Pocahontas, what a piece of crap.
Right? Well, usually when it comes to animated films, if I had no intention of seeing it in the first place, I don't even bother watching it on home video.
Same here.
So soon as I saw Pocahontas with a love story, it was like, I'll skip. And I still to this day haven't watched it. I mean, I guess if I had to pick one that's bad, I'm not going to say I was ever looking forward to it, but I've seen it on television. It's stuff like, All Dogs Go to Heaven 1 or 2.
I got a great example of a film that was a colossal disappointment just because I couldn't figure out what the fuck was going on in the story half the time. But I mean, it was a beautiful looking film. Was Final Fantasy. I didn't know what the hell was going on with that for the
I've
thing.
seen bits and pieces. But
I couldn't figure out from
Wonderful
from
animation.
the get-go.
But bad movie.
Boy, bad writing. And what's weird is they called it Final Fantasy, but it had nothing to do with the friggin' game.
I will say one of the worst sort of animated films I see, which is sad because of the person behind it, was Cool World.
Very disappointing.
It was
very,
just,
very
you talk about
disappointing.
watching a film, you're like, what the hell is going on? And nothing worked in that film.
Bad,
Absolutely nothing.
Good soundtrack, though. Good soundtrack. I bought the soundtrack. It's a good
It should have
soundtrack.
been, and we want to mention too, that's Ralph Bakshi working with, kind of doing a Roger Rabbit
It was
thing.
like his adult take on Roger Rabbit. but it just nothing in that film worked. None of the jokes landed.
Brad Pitt was terrible. Kim Basinger was terrible.
Well, one that's kind of similar, except not as cool as that one, was Monkey Bone, which I only mentioned. I wasn't really looking forward to it, but when I heard the original idea, it sounded really good. And then when I watched the DVD, which I would only suggest if you ever want to see 2 hours of a director ripping the studio for basically not letting him do what he wanted to do for 2 hours straight, I would say it's basically a 2-hour rant if you listen to the commentary on that.
Well, also you got two kisses of death: Brendan Fraser, Chris Kattan. I rest my case.
But Chris Kattan wasn't in it that much, which was thankful.
But he was
There was a movie called, you probably know it, this really terrible, terrible film, you know, tits and ass horror film. What was it called? Like Monster Tunes or something?
Oh God, yeah. I know what you're talking about. It's called something Tunes. I forgot what it's called. Awful movie by Fred Olen Ray.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I saw it
David
like late
Carradine's
night
in it.
HBO one time. I was like, I cannot believe they actually made this film. Like it's the usual standard slasher film,
I
but
know
someone
that
actually made an effort to make an animated
David
demon
Carradine's in
character that's supposed to be like a little Tasmanian devil running
Evil
around.
Tunes.
Evil
I've seen
Tunes,
it
that's
late
it.
night on Cinemax.
Except it should be just Evil Tune because there's just one animated character.
I've
running.
seen Evil Tunes. Shit.
I can mention one too.
Not for a long
I
time.
can mention a really bad one. We only have like 1 minute left. But the movie I gotta mention is, and I think it's really, really, really dreadful. It is, oh God, well, one of them was Bebe's Kids, but the one is really bad, Dirty Duck, which was a film that has stars Flo and Eddie, if you remember them. Mark Kalin
Turtles.
of the Turtles, from Frank Zappa. Very bad, some of the worst animation I've ever seen.
What was the one with Matt Damon and Drew Barrymore when they're trying to save Earth or whatever? What the hell was that?
That was a
Treasure. Was it Treasure?
No, that wasn't Treasure
No, it
Planet.
was a Treasure Planet.
Was that Earth something?
Earth something AD. Titan AD.
Titan
AD.
That was a piece of crap.
But Donald Bluth when he went down the toilet. Anyway, check out the website, email us, and hopefully we'll see you next week.
Hi, I'm Edwin Samuelson. Welcome to the Cinephiles. Today we're going to be talking about, I guess we'd say rock and roll cinema, right?
No, we're going to do viruses and the apocalypse.
The first I would like to talk about, and I know this is one that we'll just do a very quick overview. I would like to talk about the Planet of the Apes series real quick, because I believe that's one of the biggest films at the end of the world.
What does that have to, what does that have to do with virus? No, about viral apocalypse film.
Well, no, I want to talk
No, what is it? Some virus that turned everyone into apes?
I want to talk
Stop right here.
No, you're forgetting the Beneath Planet of the Apes.
Let's really stretch the definition.
Let's just start with the nudity. What happened to all the nudity in films?
Excellent nudity, Mike.
That's the only reason to actually sit there and watch.
I want to see her face again.
But artistic. Is that sarcasm? No, it's excellent nudity. She's really hot.
I'll give it that.
Canadian nudity.
Bush?